Ladies and gentlemen, before we start, tell me where you're listening from in the comments. Maybe you're stuck in traffic, overwhelmed by your to-do list that never seems to get shorter. Maybe you're at your desk right now, surrounded by sticky notes and open browser tabs, wondering why you feel busy all the time, but never feel like you're making real progress. This conversation is going to change that. I'm going to tell you about the most counterintuitive productivity system I've ever discovered. It's not about doing more, it's about doing less, much less. And it's the reason I can run multiple companies, launch rockets, build electric cars, and still have time to think about the future of human consciousness. Most people think productivity means cramming more into each day. They're wrong. Productivity means creating more value with less effort. And after running companies for over 20 years, after building Tesla from zero to the most valuable car company in the world, after taking SpaceX from a crazy idea to regularly launching astronauts, I've learned that the secret isn't doing everything, it's doing the right three things. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why your current approach to productivity is probably making you less effective, not more. You're going to learn the exact system I use to identify what actually matters, and you're going to walk away with a framework that can transform not just your days, but your entire trajectory. But first, let me tell you about the day that changed everything. It was March 20. Tesla was in what I called production hell. We were supposed to be manufacturing 5,000 Model 3s per week, but we were stuck at around 2. The media was calling it a disaster. Short sellers were betting billions against us, and I was working 120 weeks trying to solve every problem myself. I was sleeping on the factory floor 3 nights a week. I was personally troubleshooting robots at 3-7 a.m. I was in meetings about battery chemistry in the morning, production line optimization in the afternoon, and software debugging at night. My calendar looked like a game of Tetris played by someone having a seizure. 15-minute meetings back-to-back from 7:00 a.m. to midnight. Every problem became my problem. Every decision had to go through me. I thought I was being productive. I thought that's what leadership looked like. Being involved in everything, available to everyone, solving all the problems. I was wrong. One morning I woke up on that factory floor and realized I couldn't remember what I had accomplished the day before. I had been in 30 meetings, answered 200 emails, made 50 decisions, but I couldn't point to a single thing that had actually moved us closer to our production targets. I was busy, but I wasn't effective. I was reacting, but I wasn't creating. I was managing problems, but I wasn't solving systems. That's when it hit me. Most of what I was doing every day was noise. Necessary noise, maybe, but noise nonetheless. And while I was drowning in noise, the few things that could actually transform our situation weren't getting the attention they deserved. So I did something radical. I can let every meeting for the next 3 days. I turned off my phone. I locked myself in a conference room with a whiteboard and asked one question. If I could only do 3 things this week, what would move us closest to our goal? The answer was fix the bottleneck in our battery pack assembly line, simplify our production process by removing unnecessary steps, install the tent structure to create additional production capacity. 3 things, not 30, not 300. 3. I spent the next 3 days working on nothing else. I didn't check email. I didn't take meetings about other issues. I didn't get pulled into the daily fires that felt urgent but weren't important. By the end of those 3 days, we had increased our production capacity by 4. Within 2 months, we hit our 5,000 cars per week target. Not because I worked harder, because I worked on what actually mattered. That experience taught me something that changed how I approach everything. The highest leverage thing you can do is identify the few activities that create disproportionate results, then ruthlessly eliminate everything else. The 3 things. Philosophy. Here's what I've learned. After 2 decades of building companies, most people fail not because they don't work hard enough, but because they work hard on the wrong things. They confuse motion with progress. They mistake being busy for being productive. They think that doing more things means creating more value. But value doesn't come from quantity. It comes from focus. Think about it this way. If you do 20 things at 50% effectiveness, you create 10 units of value. But if you do 3 things at 100% effectiveness, you create 3 units of value that are actually finished, actually impactful, actually meaningful. Which approach moves you closer to your goals? The math is simple, but the psychology is hard. We've been trained to believe that busy equals important, that full calendars mean full lives, that saying yes to everything makes us valuable. It's the opposite. The most valuable people I know, the ones who actually change industries, who build lasting companies, who solve meaningful problems, they all have one thing in common. They're ruthless about what they say no to. Warren Buffett puts it perfectly. The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. But here's where most productivity advice fails. It tells you to prioritize, but it doesn't tell you. It tells you to focus, but it doesn't give you a system for deciding what deserves your focus. That's where the three things system comes in. How do I identify your three things? Every morning, before I check my phone, before I look at my calendar, before I dive into the chaos of running multiple companies, I ask myself one question. What are the three things that, if completed today, would make the biggest difference in moving toward my most important goal? Not the most urgent things, not the loudest things, not the things that will make other people happy, the three things that actually matter. Here's how I think about it. Level 1. Maintenance. These are things that keep the lights on. Answering emails, attending status meetings, reviewing reports. Important for daily operations, but they don't create new value. Level 2. Optimization. These are things that make existing systems better. Improving processes, reducing costs, fixing problems. Valuable but incremental. Level 3. Transformation. These are things that change the game entirely. New products, new markets, new technologies, breakthrough innovations that create exponential value. Most people spend 80% of their time on level 1, 15% on level 2, and then they wonder why their careers feel stuck, why their companies grow slowly, why their impact feels limited. I flip that ratio. I spend 5% of my time on level 1, 15% on level 2, and 80% on level 3. That's only possible if you're ruthless about your three things. Let me show you how this works in practice. Real examples from my day. Yesterday, my three things were review and approve the final design for Starship's heat shield tiles. This affects whether we can safely land humans on Mars. Level 3. Transformational. Make the final decision on Tesla's next Gigafactory location. This determines our production capacity for the next decade. Level 3. Transformational. Record this podcast to share these productivity insights. This could help thousands of people work more effectively. Level 3. Transformational. Notice what's not on the list. Reviewing weekly sales reports. Level 1. Delegate it to my team. Approving marketing budgets. Level 2. I trust my CMO. Attending the quarterly board prep meeting. Level 1. I'll read the summary. Each of those things is important, but none of them is transformation. None of them moves us closer to our biggest goals as much as my three chosen focus areas. This isn't about ignoring everything else. It's about being clear on what gets your full attention versus what gets handled by your systems and your team. Last week, my three things were personally test drive the latest full self-driving beta. If I'm going to put this technology in customer hands, I need to understand exactly how it performs. Level 3. Design the structural changes needed for Starship to carry 100. Mars colonization requires scale. Level 3. Finalize the acquisition strategy for the lithium mining company. Tesla's future depends on battery supply chain control. Level 3. Three things. Each one could change the trajectory of our company. Each one required my specific expertise and decision-making authority. Each one moved us significantly closer to goals that matter. But here's the key. I didn't just identify these three things. I protected them. The protection protocol, identifying your three things, is only half the battle. The other half is protecting them from everything else that'll try to steal your attention. Here's my system. Time blocking. Each of my three things gets a dedicated block of uninterrupted time. Not 30 minutes between meetings. Not multitasking while on calls. Dedicated focused deep work time. Communication boundaries. During my three things time, I'm unavailable. My assistant knows not to interrupt me except for genuine emergencies. My phone is off. Slack is closed. The world can wait. Decision pre-commitment. Before I start working on my three things, I decide in advance how I'll handle distractions. If someone asks me about X, I'll schedule it for tomorrow. If Y problem comes up, I'll delegate it to Z person. Energy management. I do my three things when my energy is highest, not when it's convenient. For me, that's usually between 8:00 a.m. and 2:00 p.m. Everything else gets scheduled around these blocks. Measurement. At the end of each day, I measure my success, not by how many things I did,
but by how much progress I made on my three things. Did I move the needle on what actually matters? This system requires discipline. It requires saying no to smart people with reasonable requests. It requires disappointing people who think their urgent issue is more important than your important work. But that's the price of creating something meaningful. That's the cost of having real impact instead of just being busy. The multitasking myth. Let me address something directly. The idea that multitasking makes you more productive is not just wrong. It's actively harmful. Every time you switch between tasks, your brain has to refocus. That refocusing takes time and energy. Studies show it can take up to 23 minutes to fully concentrate on a new task after an interruption. If you're constantly switching between things, checking email while on calls, while thinking about your next meeting, you're never fully present for any of them. You're operating at partial capacity all day long. But it gets worse. Multitasking doesn't just reduce the quality of your work, it reduces the quality of your thinking. When your attention is fragmented, you can't make the kind of deep connections that lead to breakthrough insight. The best ideas I've ever had, the ones that led to Tesla's success, to SpaceX's innovations, to Neuralink's breakthroughs, they all came during periods of deep focused work on single problems, never while multitasking. Your brain is not a computer processor. It can't run multiple programs simultaneously without performance degradation. It's more like a spotlight, incredibly powerful when focused, but weak when spread across multiple targets. This is why the three things system works so well. It gives your brain permission to focus. It creates the conditions for your highest quality thinking. It allows you to operate at full capacity instead of partial capacity. What this looks like for you, you might be thinking, this sounds great for a CEO, but I'm not running multiple companies. I have a boss. I have deadlines. I have meetings I can't skip. I get it. But the principles still apply, even if the execution looks different. If you're an employee, your three things might be: complete the analysis that will inform next quarter's strategy, have the difficult conversation with your underperforming team member, prototype the solution to the customer complaint pattern you've identified. If you're starting a business, your three things might be: talk to 10 potential customers to validate your product idea, build the minimum viable version of your core feature, research and reach out to potential investors or partners. If you're a student, your three things might be: master the concept that will be most important for your upcoming exam, work on the project that showcases your abilities to potential employers, build a relationship with a professor who could become a valuable mentor. The specifics change, but the principle remains. Identify the few things that create disproportionate value, then protect your time and energy for those things. Even if you can't control your entire schedule, you can probably control some of it. Maybe it's the first hour of your day. Maybe it's your lunch break. Maybe it's the time after dinner before you watch television. Find pockets of time when you can work on what actually matters, and guard those pockets ruthlessly. The compound effect. Here's what happens when you consistently apply the three things. Week 1. You feel weird because you're not as busy as usual, but you notice you're making more meaningful progress. Month 1. You start seeing results from the things you've been focusing on. Problems get solved. Projects get completed. Skills get developed. Month 3. Other people start noticing your increased effectiveness. You're not just busier, you're better. Month 6. The compound effect kicks in. The progress you made in months 1 to 3 creates new opportunities, which create more progress, which creates more opportunity. Year 1. You look back and realize you've accomplished more in 12 months than you did in the previous 3 years combined. This isn't theory. This is what happened when I applied this system consistently. Tesla went from near bankruptcy to the most valuable car company in the world, not because we worked more hours, but because we focused on the few things that actually mattered: battery technology, manufacturing efficiency, and autonomous driving. SpaceX went from exploding rockets to regularly launching astronauts, not because we tried to solve every problem at once, but because we focused on the three core challenges: propulsion, guidance, and recovery. The same principle applies to personal productivity. Small improvements in focus compound into massive improvements in results. Advanced strategy. Once you've mastered the basic three things system, here are some advanced strategies I use. Weekly three things. Beyond daily three things. I identify three things for each week. These are bigger projects that might take multiple days, but still create disproportionate value. Monthly three things. Even bigger picture. What are the three major initiatives that will define this month? These guide my weekly and daily choices. Quarterly 3 things. The 3 major goals for the quarter. Everything else is measured against these. The 80/20th analysis. Regularly ask yourself, what 20% of what I'm doing creates 80% of my results? Then do more of that 20% and less of everything else. The regret minimization framework. When choosing between options, ask which choice will I regret least in 10 years. This helps distinguish between what feels urgent and what actually matters. Energy mapping. Track your energy levels throughout the day and schedule your 3 things during your peak hours. Don't waste your best energy on low-value activities. The 2-list strategy. Warren Buffett's method. Write down your top 25 goals. Circle the top 5, then avoid the other 20 at all costs. They're not your second priorities. They're distractions from your real priorities. Common mistakes and how to avoid them. Mistake 1. Choosing 3 small things instead of 3 important things. Solution. Ask yourself, if I only accomplished these 3 things this year, would I be satisfied with my progress? Mistake 2. Letting urgent things override important things. Solution. Remember that urgent rarely means important. Important things rarely feel urgent until it's too late. Mistake 3. Not saying no to good opportunities. Solution. Good is the enemy of great. Every yes to something good is a no to something great. Mistake 4. Trying to do 3 things simultaneously. Solution. Focus on 1 thing at a time. 3 things per day doesn't mean multitasking. Mistake 5. Not measuring progress. Solution. Track how much time you actually spend on your 3 things versus everything else. You might be surprised. The deeper philosophy. The 3 things system is really about something deeper than productivity. It's about intentionality. It's about living a life designed by you instead of dictated by circumstances. Most people let their days happen to them. They respond to whatever seems most urgent, whatever makes the most noise, whatever other people think is important. But when you choose your 3 things, you're taking control. You're saying, this is what matters to me. This is how I want to spend my finite time and energy. This is how I want to move toward the future I'm trying to create. It's a form of personal sovereignty. Instead of being a victim of your circumstances, you become the architect of your results. This philosophy extends beyond work. I apply the same thinking to my personal life, my relationships, my health, my learning. In every area I ask, what are the few things that create disproportionate value? For health, it might be consistent sleep, daily exercise, and stress management. For relationships, it might be regular deep conversations, shared experiences, and acts of service. For learning, it might be reading first principles books, learning from direct experience, and teaching others what I've learned. 3 things in each area, not because more isn't better, but because focus creates better results than diffusion. The time scarcity truth. Here's something most people don't want to confront. You have less time than you think. If you're 30 years old, you have about 17,000 days left. If you're 40, you have about 13, until you realize how many of those days will be spent sleeping, commuting, eating, doing maintenance activities that don't create lasting value. Your actual time for meaningful work, for creating something important, for building towards your biggest goals. That's probably 2 to 3 HRs per day. On average, that's 700, 1,000 hours per year. That's your entire allocation for changing your life, building your career, creating your legacy. Do you really want to waste that time on things that don't matter? The 3 things system isn't just about productivity. It's about honoring the limited time you have by spending it on what actually counts. Building your system. Here's your action plan for implementing the 3 things system. Week 1. Observation. Track everything you do for 1 week. Every meeting, every email, every task. Categorize each activity as level 1, maintenance, level 2, optimization, or level 3, transformation. You'll probably be shocked by how much time you spend on level 1. Week 2, identification. Start each day by identifying your 3 things. Before you do anything else, write them down. Be specific. Make sure at least 2 of them are level 3 activities. Week 3, protection. Begin protecting time for your 3 things. Block calendar time. Turn off notifications during focus work. Practice saying no to requests that don't align with your priorities. Week 4, measurement. At the end of each day, rate how well you executed on your 3 things. What percentage of your time went to activities that actually matter? What got in the way? How can you improve tomorrow, month 2 and beyond? Refinement. Continuously improve your system. What patterns do you notice? What obstacles keep appearing? How can you design your environment to make success easier? The ultimate question. Let me leave you with the question that changed everything for me. If you could only work 3 hours per day, what would you work on? Not what you should work on. Not what your boss wants you to work on. Not what feels most urgent. What would you work on if you only had 3 hours to create value? Whatever your answer is, that's what deserves your focus now, even if you have more than 3 hours available. Because here's the truth. More time doesn't make you more effective. Better choices do. The 3 things system isn't about doing less so you can be lazy. It's about doing less so you can be legendary. It's about choosing progress over activity, impact over effort, results over busyness. Your 3 things are waiting. The question is, are you brave enough to ignore everything else? Subscribe to this channel if this changes how you think about productivity. Share it with someone who's drowning in their to-do list. And most importantly, go identify your 3 things for tomorrow. The world doesn't need another busy person. It needs more people who create extraordinary results by focusing on what actually matters. Your 3 things. Not 30, not 300. 3. That's how you change everything.